The cashier's apology was soft, but the machine's beep was ugly and loud. Transaction declined. A hot flush of shame crawled up my neck. The smell of the yellow tulips in my cart, which I'd hoped would brighten the kitchen, now seemed to mock me. I ran my debit card again. The same jarring beep. Behind me, someone sighed impatiently. It was just $64, but in that moment, a deep, chilling dread washed over me. I didn't know the full truth yet, that the man I'd trusted for 12 years had left me with just $17.31 to my name. This isn't just a story about losing money. It's about a betrayal so complete it shatters your reality. But how could 12 years of trust vanish in a single beep? It started 12 years ago. My husband, David, was a planner. He had our future mapped out in cruise brochures and dog-eared travel books tucked away in a half-finished scrapbook. "We're building a pyramid, Helen," he'd say, "stone by stone, for a future where we can spoil our grandkids." But the world of finance was a fog to him, so a colleague recommended Mark. Mark wasn't slick. His office was filled with pictures of his own smiling family. He wore cozy sweaters and had a warm, disarming smile that felt like safety. He made the complex simple. "Think of your portfolio like a garden," he'd say. We handed him everything, our entire pyramid. When David was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the world went silent. In the crushing quiet of the house, Mark's calls were a lifeline. His voice became a stand-in for David's absence, a steady presence when my own world was tilting. After David died, Mark sent a wreath with a card that read, "It was my privilege to help secure the future he worked so hard for you." In my grief, my trust in him became absolute. He wasn't just managing our money. He was honoring my husband's memory. But he wasn't guarding David's pyramid. He was already taking it apart, stone by stone, and I hadn't even felt the first tremor. The years that followed were quiet. Twice a year, Mark would show me colorful charts in a heavy binder. "We're well balanced, Helen," he'd say. "David would be proud." That money was my dignity. It meant I could buy ice cream for my grandchildren without thinking twice. It was the promise I would never be a burden to my children. Looking back, the red flags were there, but he was a master at painting them green. 3 years after David died, he suggested we move my money. "We can simplify things, Helen," he said, his voice smooth as silk, "by bringing it under my firm's own in-house custodial services. It'll be easier to track." It sounded like simple housekeeping. I didn't know that an independent third-party custodian is the most critical firewall between your money and an advisor's greed. I signed the form he'd already filled out. The statements now came directly from Markham Financial. They looked identical to the old ones, but they were pure fiction. He wasn't just sending me statements, he was creating them. He loved to use the term fiduciary duty, his legal obligation to act in my best interest. He said it like a prayer, a word meant to soothe. Now I know it was a weapon he used to disarm me. I remember David's voice in my head, a faint whisper. "Always trust your gut, Helen." A cold seed of doubt had been planted. But what I didn't know was that the cruelest blow hadn't even landed yet. The tremors started small. David's pension payment, usually direct deposited on the 1st of the month, was 3 days late. I called Mark, and he laughed it off. "A little hiccup at the pension office," he said. The money appeared the next day. Now I know he wasn't my protector. He was testing the system. A few months later, a bigger tremor, a $5,000 withdrawal I didn't recognize. My heart stuttered. As I dialed his number, I could almost hear David's voice. Always double-check the details, Helen. But Mark was so calm, his tone shifting to one of mild irritation, as if I were a child. Just an internal rebalancing, Helen, he said smoothly. The money is still yours. It's just working harder for you in a different account. His jargon was a flood designed to make me feel foolish for questioning him. He became harder to reach. Then came the letter from the IRS. My hands shook as I called him. Helen, 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 he said with a sigh. This is exactly why you have me. Identity thieves are everywhere. Do not call that number. It's a scam. Let me handle it. He twisted my fear into proof of why I needed him, isolating me from the very agencies that could have helped me. But that card decline at the grocery store was nothing compared to what was waiting at his office door. He was isolating me, turning my fear into a shield for his lies. But how much had he already stolen by then? The end came on a painfully ordinary Tuesday. At the grocery store, the total was $64.22. I'm sorry, the cashier said, her voice a soft whisper in the roaring of my ears. It says, transaction declined. I ran the card again. The same sharp, ugly beep. My face was on fire as I pushed my cart, with its cheerful tulips to the side, and walked out. In the car, my hands trembled as I pulled up my bank's app. Checking account balance, $17.31. It had to be a glitch. Then I saw it. A wire transfer from 2 days ago for the entire remaining balance to a corporation I'd never heard of. My first call was to the bank. They confirmed the transfer. Reversing it was nearly impossible. My second call was to Mark. The number went straight to a recorded message. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. I drove to his office in a state of pure terror. The door was locked. I peered through the glass. The office was a crime scene. It was a tomb. No family photos, no cozy sweaters, just faint, dusty outlines on the walls where pictures used to hang, and the stale, dead smell of dust and abandonment. He was a ghost. The truth hit me with the force of a physical blow. The late payment, the rebalancing, the fake statements, the disconnected phone. It was all a calculated plan. I sat in my car in the empty parking lot, clutching the wilting tulips as if they were the only real thing left, and for the first time in my life, I felt the terrifying blackness of true despair. The hardest thing I've ever done was tell my children. I sat them at my kitchen table, the same table where Mark had promised to honor their father's legacy, and told them everything was gone. I watched their shock curdle into a fierce, protective anger, but underneath it, I saw their pity. Later, I heard them whispering in the other room, a hushed, pained argument over whose turn it was to pay my mortgage. The shame was a physical weight, heavier than any grief I had ever known. We learned Mark was an alias. The chance of getting any money back is almost zero. Eventually, I had to sell my home. The day I walked out that door for the last time, I touched the door frame where David had marked our children's heights. I ran my hand over the indentations in the carpet where our sofa had sat for 30 years. I was leaving a lifetime of memories behind. I had to explain to kind neighbors why the for sale sign was on the lawn. The humiliation churning with every phone call and every piece of paperwork. My daughter and her husband let me move into the apartment over their garage. In that darkness, we pieced together the lessons, which I am sharing with you now. First, fiduciary. I learned that a true fiduciary is legally required to act in your absolute best interest. Always ask an advisor, are you a fiduciary at all times? And get it in writing. Second, custody. This was my fatal mistake. An independent third-party custodian holds your assets and sends you its own separate statements. Had I received those, I could have compared them to Mark's fakes and seen the lies instantly. Never, ever write an investment check directly to your advisor or their firm. Third, verify. Don't just trust. Verify everything. Use FINRA's broker check. It's a free tool on their website that lets you see an advisor's history, qualifications, and any complaints or disciplinary actions. It takes 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes could have saved me. Fourth, know the red flags. Pressure to act fast, vague answers, and especially insisting that you only communicate through them are all tactics of a scammer. A legitimate advisor wants you to be informed. A scammer wants to isolate you. I am sharing this story not for pity, but to put a shield in your hands that I never had. From one grandmother to another, I am begging you, please check on your finances tonight. If you have an advisor, no matter how much you trust them, verify them. Use FINRA's broker check. Ask if they are a fiduciary. Confirm your money is held with a large, independent, third-party custodian. Read your statements from the advisor and the custodian and make sure they match. Please share this story with your parents, your friends, anyone who has entrusted their future to someone else. If my nightmare can prevent one more family from this hell, my suffering will have found a purpose. I lost more than money. I lost my sense of safety. I'm rebuilding slowly. I have a small pot on my windowsill now where I'm growing my own tulips. They are fragile, but they are alive. It's a start. But the ghost of what I lost is always there. The ghost of my husband's hard work, of our shared dreams, and of the man I called a friend, who smiled at me while he stole my life. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.